Welcome to our Spiritist blog, Spiritist Musings. Today is very important. We are talking about a prophecy by Chico Xavier. We are at the start of a new beginning. On July 20th, 1969, man landed on the moon, but in the spirit world it meant something else, that mankind's technology had outpaced its spiritual progress. In this video, we will learn what will happen next after the Earth has avoided nuclear war for 50 years. In 1969, when astronauts first landed on the moon, the coming meeting of the Community of Pure Spirits, as promised by Emmanuel in the book On the Way to the Light, published in 1939, and this meeting was the third meeting, the first at the formation of the solar system, and the second when Jesus came to Earth. The Community of Pure Spirits met because they were worried about men traveling to the moon. While our spiritual maturity was so lacking, our technology was ahead of our spirituality. At that time, the world was on a constant brink of nuclear war. The Community of Pure Spirits wanted to take the Earth back to another dark age to allow time for our collective spiritual maturity to take hold. Now, the spirits have also told us this has happened before, not once, not twice, but more than 2 times. We have been told in Spiritist writings this has happened to Lemuria and Atlantis. Both civilizations were brought completely down, so because technology had advanced beyond humankind's morality, and we had to start all over again. Not completely over, but with a different foundation. But this time, Jesus interceded and asked for time. It was decided to give the Earth 50 years. Hence, if the Earth didn't have any nuclear war for 50 years, we would be allowed to continue to progress. The end date of that, of course, is July 2019. So what would have happened? Before I get to what will happen afterwards, let's talk about what will happen if we had had nuclear war, because this is quite quite astounding. So, if nuclear war occurred during this time, and I'll go over this, a little bit in summary, the devastation would be immense. Besides the nuclear fallout, the Earth itself would rise up and pay back for all the harm it had done to it over the centuries. The northern hemisphere would be devastated. It would be, it would be not only would nuclear war would happen, but it would be like the whole volcano bubble under Yellowstone would have gone up and just made huge swaths of North America uninhabitable, and most of the land would be within the northern hemisphere would be uninhabitable. And the military of the surviving countries, what they would do, they would invade the southern hemisphere in order to have arable land. For instance, the U.S. would invade Latin America, as would China, and Europe would also invade Latin America. Chico said Brazil itself would be broken up into parts shared by occupying powers. So, now, what would happen if there was no nuclear war, which we are on now? Since we have reached 2019 without nuclear conflict, then wonderful things will happen. These certain events will unfold. Aliens, they're about 1 meter tall variety. The 2 meter tall variety may also come, but Chico's told us they are not to be trusted. So the very tall aliens, not so sure about. And I talk more about this in my book, The 1,000-Year March Towards a Just and Equitable Society. They will come to Earth and they will help promote dramatic improvements in medicine and technology. These aliens have been nervously watching Earth for some time. They have the capability to transport themselves through great distances. What has not been known to us is that conflicts on our planet sends out destructive negative waves which affect the entire galaxy. So hence, the more advanced races are watching our progress. And I've talked about this in other videos. Our thoughts. In fact, during World War II, our collective thoughts, how terrible they were. The other planets said, no, you've got to create some sort of boundary from that because we're getting all of this negative emotions from the Earth. So the aliens are cognizant of the power of the spirit world, and they work with the spirit realm in their endeavors. After all, just like us, the aliens are immortal souls who reincarnate, perish, and reincarnate again. In fact, some of the aliens may have had a life on Earth in human form in the distant past. So what shall the future hold? Chico said aliens would come. Now, he didn't give a time frame to that. But what he had told one person, it will come within your life, and that was about probably 20 years ago or so. I'm not quite sure. So I would think that the aliens will come within a span probably of 5 to 20 years. I'm not sure. I can't vouch for any of the time frames. And of course, the spirit world always reserves the right to look at circumstances and change when things will happen. But what this means is even a greater thing. But first, let me say this. A lot of people have interpreted Chico's prophecy as there would just be this giant apocalypse and all human life would be erased from the earth. No, that's not true. Just like Atlantis, Lemuria, it would not wipe out all human life. What it would do, it would destroy the infrastructure, and it would cause the technology to be lost, and for mankind to have to almost start over, which had happened in the past multiple times. The same thing would happen here. North America, the centers of technology would be wiped out. We would be moving back to, large part would be moving to Africa and Central and South America, I should say. All technology would not be wiped out, but everything would be devastated for, decades. And it would cause mankind to re-evaluate their morality and their spirituality to show them how close they were to absolute destruction. So the earth would still have survived. Most of us, if we were living in North America, probably wouldn't. But that's not, what the spirit world knows is when they have these giant catastrophes, they warn people. And also, you are an immortal soul. So it's just like taking chess pieces off the chessboard. You take them off and then you'll put them back on again. We'll go back to the spirit world, and then you'll go back after learning the lessons we needed to do as a collective humanity. But what this means is the fact that we haven't had nuclear war for 50 years. It means that we are truly, which I think the spirit world really has known this since the year 2000. I think they looked far ahead to know that this would not happen. Because what have we been told is that more and more higher spirits are coming back to Earth. First, Emmanuel, who was Chico's guardian mentor, right? He was reincarnated in Brazil in the year 2000. We've also been told that Socrates and Buddha will be incarnated back on Earth. So the fact that these high spirits, Socrates and Buddha, who've had wonderful messages for humankind, are coming back says the spirit world has full knowledge that we would have been able to get through this 50-year period, and now they're setting up the next period. And the next period is where a lot of spiritists say we really have the date that started is about the year 2000. And that is us becoming a planet of regeneration. So when you hear things about the apocalypse and the revelations, in Spiritism says our transition to a better planet, to a paradise on Earth, is going to be gradual. The way this transition will occur is that all of our collective thoughts, it will happen when there are more good spirits on Earth, when we are in the majority, when those who have honor, love, get rid of envy and pride and selfishness, when we are in the majority, not that I'm there yet, but when that happens, those type of spirits are in the majority, the Earth will slowly start transitioning to a planet of regeneration where there is no hate, envy, or wars. Also, what will happen as the spirits who are discarnated around the Earth and below the Earth, those are in the dark abyss and the umbral, those spirits who do not have seen the light and raised themselves up to a higher spiritual plane will be sent to other planets. Therefore, that really is the apocalypse. The dividing will happen actually in the spirit world. But our planet, once we have more and more, mature spirits, the planet will rise up, not because of Jesus or God saying, oh, the planet will rise up. It rises up because of our collective thoughts. And when all of us are on a higher plane, the Earth, too, will start slowly moving to a higher plane. That will then we will be a planet of regeneration. And there's another level after that. You can read more in my books. If you want to know the understanding of the spirit world and how, and I describe this as like whole cities will rise up, you need to read my series of 3 books. It starts with Heaven and Below, then Spirit and the Spirit Universe, and then how spirits guide us. And I'll have links to all those down below in the links. But this is the great news of the prophecy for by Chico Xavier. We have reached the 50-year mark. Now there are wonderful things that are going to happen. The earth will become much better. That doesn't mean we're going to have periods of economic calamity, right? We may have smaller wars. There may be, when they said no nuclear war for 50 years, that doesn't mean there might be some isolated conflict. I'm not sure. There's a lot of things. The funny thing is with prophecies, people always want to know, well, when will that happen on this certain date? And of course, it's, when I've been given what will happen to myself and maybe to my wife, we always have an interpretation. And of course, after the fact, what really happens, we say that our interpretation is correct. So be prepared. This will happen, but it may not happen in the manner that you think. God is wise. Jesus is wise. These things happen all for a purpose. So be prepared. It's going to be a fun ride. This is going to be an exciting time to be alive. Please contribute your own spirituality. My book, How to Live Inner Peace with Spiritism, will help you able to ascend that stairs to be one of the collective humanity that will help bring the earth to a next level. I want to say God bless to everyone.